After 10,000 years? Just kidding. After like 40 minutes of waiting, finally into another game here. It is going to be a best of 3 PvP between the top left player, ShoWTimE, who's on Team BIG, and that's from me. In the bottom right, it is Shopfire Rebellion's Harstem. Harstem was playing a very feisty game number 3 versus a Zerg player who I do not recognize. Don't even recognize the flag. And that player's name, because they kind of deserve a shout-out, was Nikic. It went down to the wire, but Harstem does have some pretty nice late-game PvZ. And he was able to bring out a win. So, this is what I expected, but it was very close to being another PvZ. But nope, PvP it is, and both players, I wouldn't say exactly equal chances to get the win here. I actually do lean towards ShoWTimE, and not just because I'm hella biased. But no, because ShoWTimE does have some of the best PvP, some of the most consistent PvP, I guess, amongst the top Prodosses. It's, as I say, always difficult to rank PvP because it's just such a volatile matchup, and so many of the Protoss players are very well versed in it, and there's a lot of also like mind games going on, I'm sure, because they play each other so often, as the European ladder is full of Prodosses, and a lot of these tournaments are full of Prodosses until that top 8. But you do have a couple of standouts, and MaxPax is still a standout, despite not being invulnerable. And ShoWTimE, I would still say, is a standout, but doesn't mean that, you know, they win 100% of the time. Because no one wins 100% of the time. Several tries to get pretty freaking close, but not quite. And PvP is extra hurtful. Try and get that perfect win record, as there's just so many damn things to consider. So many. But I do lean towards ShoWTimE. It really depends on the form Harstem is in. Harstem has been a threat to every player in the Open Cup at any given time, even the likes of the Clem. Even at some of his height, there'd be a time where like Harstem actually took a map and you'd be like, oh shit, what's gonna happen here? Sounds like a 2-1 in favor of Clem, but nonetheless, there was a time where Clem's PvT, or TvP in his case, was looking indestructible. Not so much anymore. But yeah, Harstem was there, chipping away at him. Harstem was there, chipping away at MaxPax's win record. He's chipping away at Rainer's win record. He basically is always a threat. I guess is the thing I'm trying to say here. Always a threat. The PvP is cruel. And ShoWTimE is going for a rather cruel opener. That is the Adept into Oracle off of 1 base. So even if you know, or if you hopefully know, that they are doing this, it can still be a struggle to defend against it. As the Adepts threaten the fronts, and then the Oracle threatens the back, and then sometimes you don't have enough units, and it just gets all kinds of screwy. In this case, I'm actually not sure Harstem, well, now he knows, had gotten in to see the lack of Nexus, but he does definitely now with 2 Stalkers. ShoWTimE actually brought the Adepts home after chasing down the Scouting Probe, and as such should have, well, maybe not enough actually. 2 more Stalkers here from Harstem, but then they're not back at home. Only a little Sentries back at home, and I think Harstem was a little late to scouting that it was a 1-base Stargate. That is the problem. Now 2 Stalkers get warped in just in time, but look at this. If Harstem could get a cancel on the Nexus, and that thing is hella low, then that would make up for the probe losses for sure. Already grabbing 2 anyway, as they desperately tried to form the shield battery. If there's a shield battery done, this is no contest. This is 100% in favor of ShoWTimE. But with the shield battery still not done, Warp Gate's done actually, and that will do the trick as well. Instant reinforcements coming through for ShoWTimE. Harstem, obviously, would have to walk across town, and as such, ShoWTimE will save the Nexus and still hold on to a 5-worker lead. But yeah, if the Nexus had actually been canceled, I mean, that would have been huge, because that was well fought over as well. But now it'll be up and running, but a little bruised and battered. Hopefully it doesn't get sniped later on. Doubt that will happen anyway. Twilight Council now coming down for ShoWTimE. Obviously, Harstem has one big thing going for him, and that is the much faster blink. Faster by like 30 seconds. That might give him a faster 3rd Nexus, or the ability to pressure a 3rd Nexus. Or, I mean, he could do a 2-base attack as well, I guess. But it doesn't seem to be going that way, so... And the Robo does get thrown down. Warp Prism could come out, all that good stuff, but the Warp Prism would be a real gamble, considering that a Phoenix could be produced. And so I don't think that would happen. Harstem knows the Stargate, so, you know. Oh, that's actually a really good scout. Harstem not going to let any sneaky pylons come down, whether that was for a 2-base attack or just for a couple of adept warp-ins. Either way, nice to shut that down. And it can be difficult to tell which one that is for. We can see that ShoWTimE actually was grabbing a faster third gateway, rather than just prioritizing the third nexus first and foremost. So, I mean, it kind of, you know, it definitely could have been for even a proxy gateway, actually, as 4-gate comes up. But certainly for some stalker pressure, particularly if Harstem took this base, which, as you can see, wouldn't actually be too common. Triangle 1 does usually come down, which is what ShoWTimE is grabbing now. So, not the fastest third nexus you'll ever see in a PvP that is basically still with 2 gateways. Can be, you know, kind of greedy and all that, but sometimes the game does lead that way. Both players getting the same third base timing. And in this case, there is a little more to talk about. There is a little more to talk about. ShoWTimE at least now having 3 gateways to defend, as that is what the game is coming down to. Harstem is grabbing a War Prism, but not for harassment. He also added on a couple extra gateways, clearly not taking his third nexus yet, something that ShoWTimE is scouting, and as such will know that he must be going for additional gateways, he must be going for an attack, and Harstem needs to get that defense ready to go, which he absolutely is. First shield battery's done, second shield battery's on the way, and then basically just pump out stalkers as much as you can. You will eventually be outnumbered, just with 4 gateways versus 3, that's how it works, right? But shield batteries make up for a lot. So, ShoWTimE, I mean, in the best possible position to defend against this. He hasn't really had a lot of other unnecessary costs, you know, that aren't helping him right here, right now. The Oracle even helping out with the stasis trap. One was popped by Harstem, who knew that'd be on the way, and he should see the other one back there, so he knows how to blink forward aggressively. But nonetheless, that means a safe retreat, or a little bit, actually. Nice blink forward from Harstem on the one weakened stalker. Pops that so that he could give chase if there was an opportunity, but I'm not sure there is. That shield battery and the natural, both actually shield batteries and the natural, helping again on that particular point. ShoWTimE able to use the full might of his concave with shield batteries defending. That is the really important point here as he miscontrols the stalker. Whoops, daisy. But if he had to, you know, hole up in his third or in his natural, then either one would have been in trouble. The other one would have been in trouble. And actually, ShoWTimE might still be in trouble. The probes are being pulled as he realizes he's not quite winning this to the degree that he would hope. In fact, down by about 7 stalkers. Warping still happening every which way. Probes pulled into this knowing that they can sacrifice their lives for the greater good. That is all the probe lead that ShoWTimE has now dead and gone. But with the third nexus still alive, there is still hope. But ShoWTimE really needs to get these gateways done. Warp-ins on the way. More shield batteries finished. It's very, very close, but things are starting to teeter in favor of Harstem, who just has too many stalkers, and now the critical mass has been achieved. Harstem is going to win with the 2-base attack after ShoWTimE was about as prepared as you could be. Almost, right? The difference is third nexus, 10 additional probes. But even though he looked about as willing and eager to get to that stalker battle as his opponent got to the faster gateways first. And that was just enough to actually win out the day. So now on the top left up one, it is Harstem. And on the bottom right, it is ShoWTimE. ShoWTimE even had those shield batteries, and I was trying to explain really amazing positions. The fact that he wasn't forced to hole up in one base so that the other base then becomes a potential problem. He holds up on his third base, the natural shield batteries die. Then he's forced to engage, you know, into his own natural without any shield batteries. It's a little awkward. Ditto on a third base being a problem if he holds up in his natural. But then again, maybe trying to take a pure stalker v stalker battle with a couple of extra shield batteries versus a handful of extra stalkers wasn't actually the best idea. Perhaps a little more of that push and pull that happens as the attacking player is like, well, maybe I'd go for the natural, okay, but I gotta worry about him jumping on top of me from behind, so let's worry about that. Plus, I gotta worry about the probe bully being even more effective if I do enter into a base to try and get that, so I won't go for it. I'll hold off for a little while longer. I mean, maybe that type of decision-making that we see sometimes in other PvPs, where there's not the ability to put down your shield batteries and a really beautiful concave for the defender, maybe actually has some merit. Maybe. But I certainly don't blame ShoWTimE for taking the battle. He was down maybe 6 stalkers, but he had shield batteries on both sides of the engagement. It sounds like a good deal. Or a good enough deal, I guess. But good enough, right? But I suppose how it matters how many stalkers are up against how many stalkers on either particular side of the battle. I don't know. Either way you sliced it, Harstem was able to win out there. With a nice blink control, very proper, safe Warp Prism positioning, and a really nice direct attack. Maybe ShoWTimE, had he known that was going to be Harstem's plan from the get-go, would have rather getting a Robo and an Immortal. Might have made his third base a little bit later, but probably would have been worth it. Salafi, ShoWTimE, once again going into the Adept opener with the Stargate, but then cancels it. With the jig so much up, that was directly scouted after all. ShoWTimE's like, you know what, nah, I'm not gonna do that. Was it worth it last game? I would say so. I still, you know, that 5 worker kill from the Oracle compared to the 2, but with the faster Nexus, well, not the faster Nexus. I think he just had more consistent pro production. Right? Yeah. Anyways, it gave him a 5 worker lead for about half of the game. He got it very, very early on, right? 4.5 minutes maybe. It was an 8-minute game. But once it's so figured out, Harstem bound to have a shield battery. You think. He doesn't, actually. You just don't go for it. Instead, gonna go for a Robo, actually. Now, ShoWTimE still very much looks like he's going into a Stargate build. Just because the Adepts into more Adepts into more Adepts can work out very well with the Oracle build. They're a little bit cheaper, even though you're pumping them out consistently, right? And then they can also add to that distraction. Look over here at the main base. The natural, at the main base of the natural. But it is only the Adepts at this point. Harstem is still going to have to defend against the possibility of an Oracle. Doesn't just do it with one of shield batteries, actually just putting his units up here. And so that will take away some of the firepower from the front lines, meaning the Adepts might even have a chance to overwhelm. That's not exactly their ideal situation, though. Even though there's a lot more Adepts than Stalkers, they are not so great in the front confrontation. And actually, the Shade might be regretted. Ah, okay, no, they break through the pylon. They're gonna have to go to the Sentry. Yeah, no force field came down as the hallucination had actually been sent forward. And so the probes will take losses here. There might have been a chance for a force field as the Adept Shade run out, right, and all that good stuff, but he literally just hallucinated. So very unfortunate timing for Harstem, who now is gonna say, hey, it's not a Stargate opener. Gotcha. But it doesn't really matter as the Adepts are doing the damage. 7 probes, 8 probes going down. And this is a decent amount of Adepts. That's a lot of ShoWTimE's actual army that's going to be sacrificed for this economic lead. But it is quite the economic lead. It's getting even better, actually, as a couple of sneaky Adepts get into the natural. And then the Warp Prism will be a constant threat to more Adept pressure. Now, Blink is almost done for Harstem. Once again, he went directly into that Twilight Council. That is the best thing he's going to have. So he can actually apply aggression if that is his choice, or take map control if that's his choice, or hopefully snipe this Warp Prism, which is absolutely his intent right here, right now. Something that ShoWTimE should be very, very mindful of. The Warp Prism should be keeping as far away as possible. That's exactly what's being done so far. So as long as the Warp Prism's up and running, more probes could go down. Harstem can't really leave Stalkers behind. If he then chooses to go ahead and be aggressive without the extra 4 Stalkers, will it really work? Eh, probably not. And this just works out beautifully for ShoWTimE, who pumped out an Immortal, handful of Sentries, second Immortal here, shield battery as well. And if Harstem had thrown his hands up in the air and said, you know what, whatever, man, I don't think you have enough back at home to defend, Harstem probably would have been wrong. Shield battery overcharge, a couple of force fields, even if you can blink over them, is a very dangerous thing to do if that second Immortal is just popping out. And certainly now, as Harstem finally feels comfortable getting a little map control, he still obviously won't be able to do too much against 2 Immortals and a Warp Prism now to juggle 2. So this is, well, this is just a very poor position for Harstem, actually. There's just no 2 ways about it. Without that force field coming down as the Adepts broke through the pylon, the Adepts just got too much damage done, caused too much chaos, and ShoWTimE in a very safe follow-up. I love the addition of the 3rd Immortal. It is a hallucination, but that is going to do wonders, and Harstem, that was very much a F it, I'm pretty much dead anyways, blink in. You knew that wouldn't really work out. GG's. Buttons are hard, guys. There you go. In the top left, tying up the series, it is ShoWTimE. In the bottom red golden aura, it is Harstem. Who, had a very unfortunate timing. I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to. Obviously being hoodwinked, figuring that it was a Stargate opener, and then only after the damage was done by the Adepts did you realize, oh, it wasn't an Oracle opener. Oh, okay, great. It does suck, is then he could have just had his units on the low grounds, and then could have maybe... Well, then he would have held on to the hallucination, probably. Yeah. Because if he saw that it was a canceled Stargate... Well, I'm just thinking if he would have held on to the hallucination. I'm just thinking out loud right now. Because then, say he sees the Stargate and then he actually somehow sees that it was also a canceled Stargate, he'd still want to know what the follow-up is. So the hallucination might still could have come down. I don't know, but if he also had known that they were going to dedicate to the 8 Adepts, which seemed like a last-second realization as well, then I think you actually save the force field. Knowing that whatever follows it up is probably not going to immediately follow up and kill you. Yeah, I think so. I think. It's again, very unfortunate reality of PvP, where it's like, think about the Stargate all you want. It's actually the Adepts that were being built up that you would find very difficult to get a scout on that as well, that you actually have to worry about, and then the fact that it's last-second information. Sometimes they don't have units in the right position, the right spells available, all that good stuff. It's kind of, it's just harsh. It's so harsh, man. And speaking of not scouting and important things to scout, we do have a robo coming down. It's not exactly proxied. Not at all, actually. But it is certainly hidden. And that is more so what Harstem is going after here. Now, ShoWTimE is going to realize that's a third pylon, not a second. He's going to go scouting around for whatever proxy it is. But actually won't be able to know what proxy it is, and it's very unlikely he'll scout his opponent's own third or even fourth base edge corner. So that is the ideal situation for Harstem. I was going to have a unit revealed. ShoWTimE did pylon block. I think the sentry was seen, but then no second unit. The second unit actually would have popped if it had been committed to, right? But he actually canceled it and then went for a stalker instead. I mean, this... I don't know if you could actually determine whether it's a robo or a Stargate based off that second unit timing, but oh, he's going to see the pylon. He's going to know exactly what this is. Kind of just lucky right there, honestly. He even got the shade in to see that it's two stalkers, although that is becoming increasingly more evident the more that you're like, oh, it's a, it's a proxy robo, but not proxied so much. Yeah, stalkers are going to come along with that. Adepts eventually, perhaps, to add that dynamic to the engagement, but first and foremost, the stalkers. And ShoWTimE just now has to prepare to be all-in. Harstem actually not going to go for an all-in. He's going to go ahead and expand. I was going to say that is an option. His Nexus is going to be quite a bit farther behind compared to his opponents, but ShoWTimE is going to be under the impression for a little while that he could be attacked. So he might not be so eager to chrono probes, or even build probes, and be cutting probes, and that might give the opportunity for Harstem to inch ever closer to the same economic predicament. Two Adepts actually going to not quite be killed. At this point in time, they're really just going for a scout. And they're going to see the Nexus. So that was a very limited amount of time in which ShoWTimE was under the illusion that he was being attacked. He did technically stall out on probes as he prioritized an Immortal first. But you kind of have to get an Immortal anyway. I mean, the fact is your opponent has a Warp Prism and an Immortal. So that's always going to be a little scary. But it was a very limited amount of time. He could have started up 2 probes immediately. He could have double chrono boosted both of his Nexus. Sure. But as it is, he still holds on to a slight worker lead, given all the hubbub that Harstem threw at him. So I'd say that's a pretty comfortable position, actually. Now, this is interesting. Harstem's going to grab a Stargate after this. The Stargates obviously can build Phoenix and take out your opponent's Warp Prism potential. It can also lift your opponent's Immortal. And if you're in a very similar army counts, but they're lacking an Immortal. That can make all the difference. ShoWTimE was clearly prepared for some Warp Prism shenanigans. He knows that it is going to be Harstem's benefit for actually investing into it. He's going to be able to fly around and try and go after Pylon snipes and Stalker snipes and Probe snipes. And he's not going to get his own Stargate to try and dissuade that. It's not a big enough threat to him to invest into that technology. And so far, so good on the defense of that Warp Prism. We do have a Twilight Council on the way for ShoWTimE, which Harstem is going to scout, so Harstem knows that he is going to be up against, well, eventually, like a more typical, I suppose, composition. Whereas ShoWTimE just saw that his opponent had actually gone into more of an atypical composition, the Phoenix, after the Robo, which, I mean, it's just the way we usually see things, just the ways that we don't usually see things. But it's atypical doesn't mean that it's bad. I'm curious how good it can be, though. The potential might be there, but the actual realization of that potential, I don't know. I'm frankly not a big believer in the Phoenix, which he, by the way, it started a second one. Not even under the guise of Hallucination. Hallucination went by, he started a second one, then he canceled it. Okay, now he's gonna go back into it. Okay, so he's prioritizing his something else. His gases. Oh. He does not have a lot of gas, does he? And Phoenix are kind of costly. Huh. I don't know, man. It feels so awkward. And then ShoWTimE even gets a second hallucination to see that it actually is consistent Phoenix production. Something that he might have been incorrect about if he based all of his scouting on that first, or the last hallucination. But even with 2 Phoenix now to take out both Immortals, I'm not sure that's going to be enough. ShoWTimE doesn't have a lot of Stalkers to snipe his opponent's Phoenix to get his Immortal back into the equation, and that is the scariest thing about this. He doesn't have his own Warp Prism either for that double micro, and you can see that ShoWTimE is very wary of this attack. Harstem, he's down 10 workers. He needs to do that damage at least to make up for this game, as he does have a third Nexus on the way, but he might be able to do a little bit more. Force fields do come down, not going to break them, and that is going to buy ShoWTimE crucial extra seconds. Also take away perhaps this hallucination that came out from Harstem, which ShoWTimE does not see, does he? Yeah, the Observer actually got pushed away. So he's not going to be able to see it. Even if he saw it, and so he knows there's hallucination in there, the AI won't. And he doesn't, you know, it's going to be lost very quickly which one was the hallucination, if he even got sight on it. But it looks like with the threat of force fields, the extra seconds to build these extra shield batteries, and just a couple of extra warp-ins now off of 6 gateways, Harstem realizes he cannot break through that, which I think is very correct. This went from a very dangerous-looking scenario for ShoWTimE to suddenly being a overwhelmingly easy-looking defense. I mean, that took like 45 seconds. And Harstem was force-fielded out of those 45 seconds that maybe could have found the damage, so he just ends up being behind. He is behind by 6 workers. He's been behind on workers rather consistently in this game, so you see a big red line going up and up for ShoWTimE there on the income graph, and now he's going to fall behind on some of the technology. He does have a faster +1, but that's not going to finish in time for this potential attack. Actually, a 4th Nexus comes down for ShoWTimE. I saw the had blink, and I saw the had charge, and I thought maybe an attack could be happening, but also not necessarily necessary. It's a situation in which ShoWTimE is undoubtedly ahead, and he can use this position to gain map control, grab a faster 4th, and perfect his army with Archons, and perhaps even a maxed out position before really engaging in a Harstem. Which means that Harstem will have this +1 attack lead, and that's all well and dandy, but it's not even that big of a lead. Excellent scouts, grabs his opponent's actual real Phoenix, takes them out of the equation. A Warp Prism could be a bigger threat later on, because of course Harstem has never gone into Blink. We'll see if that is the case. Pylons also getting killed and depowering some of these gateways, and more so, I would say for Harstem, the fear of being out of position is absolutely there. Is the pylons weren't powering anything extremely important right at that point. And the loss of the Phoenix, well, you know, they could have been helpful. It's a little doubtful how helpful they really could have been. Fortunately, there was no other attack. Now, that might not be the case for very much longer. So ShoWTimE might do the exact same thing and then attack with the charged Sentry Immortal Archon army as the Harstem's army gets position, or he just goes in with a bit of a 2-pronged attack almost. Up this ramp, up this choke. It's still a defender's advantage to Harstem, right? With shield battery and shield battery overcharge. And he has a feisty composition. He's missing all of those stalkers, obviously, but depending on how the engagement goes, maybe he could survive. But this is not going to be that situation. He does not have the shield batteries on his side. The force field can't help because everyone has Archons anyway. And this is just a numbers game. Even with the shield battery overcharge, this might have been way too much to overcome. ShoWTimE going to deliver the killing blow at pretty much a very appropriate time. Could he have done it faster? You could really argue it if you really wanted to, for whatever reason, but the most important thing is he didn't wait so long that he actually let Harstem pack into this game. That was a kill, not a cancel there too, and Harstem is just SOL. ShoWTimE, a little more consistent in the PvP department. And GG. ShoWTimE wins 2-1. And we'll move on into the round of 8, I think.